Hey, welcome back to Eli the Obody Tech. I'm here once again working on this 2000 Nissan Frontier 2.4 liter engine. As you guys saw at the beginning of the video, we had a crank no start condition. So the customer pretty much towed in his truck this morning. I finally was able to get to it. I've already gone and checked for fuel delivery. That's not the problem. We do have a good working fuel pump that's priming and sending enough fuel pressure to the engine. So now I'm actually going towards ignition problem. Probably a faulty distributor, maybe a faulty cap and rotor, or ignition coil. I'm not sure yet, so I'm going to carry you guys into this diagnosis with the potentially ignition problem. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use an inline spark tester with ignition wire number 1. So let me set up and then show you guys to see if we're getting any spark. Alright, so as you can see, I've already set up my inline spark tester, test light. I'm going to go ahead and crank the engine to see if we're getting any spark to this number 1 cylinder. Alright. As you saw there was no spark going into the inline spark tester. In other words, the bulb was not flickering on and off to show that there was actually spark going through the spark plug. So that's pretty much telling me that we might have a potential cap and rotor problem. So that'll be the next item to go after. Alright, okay, so I've already removed the cap, the ignition cap to the distributor. I'm doing a visual inspection. So far, I really don't see any potential signs of a bad cap that causes no spark condition. So far, the ignition rotor, I really don't see any signs of potential cause of this no start condition. So for now, I will roll out the cap and rotor as potential problems. So the next thing I'll do, I'm gonna use a test light connected to ground and put it against the ignition coil spring, which is right here by my finger. There's a little spring in there, so I'm gonna check for spark at that point to see if there's any spark coming out through the ignition coil. After I do that, then I'll go ahead and do some primary and secondary ohm readings. Alright guys, so with the test light connected to a good chassis ground, make sure not to connect it to battery negative, potentially of an explosion. So better be safe than sorry. Alright, so since the test light is already connected to a good chassis ground, the test light is connected to the ignition coil spring. So I'm going to go ahead and crank the engine to see if there's any spark coming out. On this type of ignition system with the distributor, cap and rotor, make sure to remove the cap and the rotor to perform this test. Alright, so here we go. So as you saw there was no spark coming out of that ignition coil to the test light. So that pretty much tells me that there's no ignition voltage that's being provided to all 4 spark plugs, to the cap and rotor. So what could also cause that? Potentially a bad ignition coil, or potentially a faulty power transistor that's not sending the signal to the ignition coil to power on and off to send the voltage. So I guess the next step I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and perform the primary and secondary ohm resistance to this ignition coil. So let me set up and then show you. Okay, so in order to check for primary and secondary resistance on this ignition coil, you must first remove the connector, the harness connector for the engine, to the connector of the ignition coil. As you can see, this is a two terminal pin connector. The harness side, hopefully you guys can see it, it's a gray connector. It has two wires, one of them is a black with white, the other one's black with red. So the first step I'm going to do is check for primary resistance. For this truck, our spec is less than 1 ohm. So here we go. I'm going to take both leads here, the red and black, and connect it to the terminals carefully. And that should be less than 1 ohm. Here we go. As you can see, it shows about 0.8, 0.9 ohms, which is within spec of 1 ohm. Next step is to go ahead and check for the secondary resistance. Our spec for that is anywhere from 9 to 13 kilo ohms. And to perform that secondary resistance on this ignition coil is to pretty much remove one of the leads, which I'm going to go ahead and remove the black one, and pretty much connect it to the ignition coil spring here, and that should give us our resistance. As you can see there, it shows about 9.65 kilo ohms, which is within that spec of 9 to 13 kilo ohms. Ideally 10 kilo ohms is the range or the ideal spec. So far, by performing the primary and secondary resistance, we've seen that our problem may not be the ignition coil that's causing this crank no start. So I'm thinking that potentially, we may have a faulty power transistor. The power transistor's job is to pretty much trigger the on and off signal to the ignition coil to send voltage to your spark plugs. In other words, to your cap and roller, and then to your spark plugs. So the next step I'll do is go ahead and perform some of voltage checks to the distributor connector. I believe it has like 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 wires. So I'll be checking for the powers and grounds on this distributor. Alright, so let me go ahead and show you guys real quick the connector for the distributor. As you can see there, I believe there's five wires to this connector here. As you can see, somebody else has already worked on this harness. It seems that they have crimped, I think it's a purple with white wire to the harness. I'm not sure if that could be a potential problem there. Maybe potential loose connection or faulty connection to that crimping there. I'm not sure. Alright, so let me go ahead and check the wiring diagram for this, and then we'll go ahead and do some voltage checks. Alright, so this is the wiring diagram for this distributor. It is a 6-wire connector. The one with purple with white, pin number 1, that's part of your power transistor. Pin number 2 is a black with red. Both the wires do go to the PCM or ECM, and pretty much this power transistor is being controlled by the computer. And then the other 4 are going to be your black with the yellow, black with pink, light green, and purple. Pretty much your black with the yellow goes to a junction number 2. Black with pink goes to your ECCS relay. And then light green and purple, those two go straight to the ECM, which is part of the camshaft position sensor. And then your ignition coil, as I did the resistance, we saw that it's a black with red and a black with white. And that one has its own separate connector. And then you have your condenser, and then you have your resistor, which is part of the left front side of the engine near distributor. So those are your ignition components that allow it to function properly for you to receive spark to your spark plugs. Alright guys, so I guess I've already found the problem as I was inputting that T connector into the first wire to our left side, which is that purple with white, which is one of our power transistor wires. This is pretty much what happened here. This connection here is pretty much not even connected to the connector. It's actually loose. It was actually deceiving. It seemed that the connector, though the wire was actually nicely making contact with the female connector of the connector. I guess that's the reason why we're not getting that spark through the ignition coil spring, which feeds all your cap and rotor, your spark plug wires to your spark plugs. Is this faulty wire that's not making any contact to the connector, which is not providing that signal from the power transistor to turn the ignition coil on and off. So I'm going to go ahead and just perform one test. I'm going to use a jumper wire and attempt to connect whatever's left on this little connector here. If there's it seems that there's a small portion of wire still sticking out. So I'm going to apply the jumper wire to this, and then the other end to the T connector, which is being back probed to the back portion of the harness or the connector. So let me go and set up and then show you guys and see if this fixes this crank no start condition. So I'll make sure to put everything back together, the cap and rotor, and see if the truck cranks over. Alright, before I crank the engine over, I want to show you guys the setup here with the jumper wire. So I have one of the jumper wires connected to the T pin, which is back probed to that wire, the purple with white, and the other lead of the jumper wire is connected to the front part of the purple with white, which is still showing some type of wires that are still sticking enough for me to put the alligator clip on it. So let me go ahead and just put the cap and rotor back and we'll see. Right guys, so with everything already in place with the cap and rotor, I have the jumper wire connected to that T pin, which was part of that purple with white, and then I got the other lead of the jumper wire connected to the harness side, which is also that purple with white. Like I said, there was enough wire that was still sticking out of that connector here, and hopefully that allows continuity between this point to the other point, which is the T connector there. If that makes good continuity, then this engine should crank over, which the power transistor is gonna send the on and off signal to the ignition coil to fire, to the cap and rotor, to the spark plug wires, and all the way to the spark plugs. So here we go. I'm gonna go ahead and crank the engine over and see what happens. So here we go. I'm gonna put the camera close to the engine. So here we go. So there you go, guys. That just confirms that the problem was that wire, purple with white. It's part of the power transistor circuit. Like day and night, it cranks over with no problem. So to fix this problem, it's just to go ahead and resolder that wire back into that female connector. And this should pretty much fix the problem here with this crank no start for this customer. So, hopefully you guys learned something with this little old school distributor ignition system. This is Eli the OBD Tech. Subscribe if you like.